Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining our Payment Allocations webinar today. My name is Sawyer Barkus. I'm a product marketing specialist here at ChiroTouch, and so excited to be here today. I want to extend a very warm welcome to Stephanie Brown, our onboarding manager, who will be introducing our hosts.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Sawyer. So most of you know me. I'm Dr. Stephanie with the onboarding team, and I do a lot of our webinars. But today, I'm going to pass it off to our product team. I just want to introduce briefly, most of you are familiar with Justin Davidson. He's going to take the lead in a couple seconds, but he is one of our product managers presenting today. Also with us, we have Sean Powers, another product manager, and his focus is on billing. And then also, we don't have her picture here, but Isabel Vivas is with us as well. And she and Sean are going to tackle moderating your questions. So Justin, you can take it away.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really excited to kick off this webinar today regarding payer payment allocations. Just running through the agenda, we're going to go over some key settings in terms of payer payments. Then we'll touch on automatic allocation versus manual posting. We'll jump into some ERA warnings, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. And then we'll jump into a sneak peek of some upcoming enhancements around handling incentives, fees, and takebacks, reversals of previous payments, manual posting workflow enhancements. All right, so jumping in to some key settings here. Is when to use payer groups. So payer groups are crucial to the payment allocation process. If you ever have to make a manual allocation, you're going to want to make sure these are set up. So why would you have payer groups? Why would you have different payers? You might have bill to different payer IDs, or you might have different billing configurations per payer plan, but the payers will reimburse on the same remit. So an example of this will be some blue plans like Blue Cross Blue Shield, your local Blue Cross that transmit under various payer names or under different billing configurations, but they pay on the same remit. So then if you need to make a manual allocation, it's helpful to have them on the same payer group. So you'll see here we have our Aetna example, and we can add a payer group if we wanted to. Using this dropdown, or we can add a new one if we had to. And you're going to find this in your billing settings under payer plans if you select a payer plan. Next up, I want to talk about the ERA payer name. So this is a field towards the bottom of your payer plan. And so this field, we use this to associate your ERAs. So if you're having ERAs that come in and are assigned to the incorrect payer for any reason, if you were to go to your ERA report and copy the payer name and paste it right in here, those remits for that payer will now only assign to that payer. So you can only use the ERA payer name once because it needs to be able to decide to use that payer. So for this, if I received Aetna and some other text after that and I pasted it right in here, it would always assign to this Aetna payer. And so it aids in selecting the appropriate payer when the ERA is received. If we don't do this, what it's going to do is find the first claim that it's responding to that is processed as primary and use that payer. All right, so jumping into some more settings. Most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with clearinghouse settings, so we're going to kind of breeze through this. But for those of you who are manually inputting payments and not receiving them via SFTP, if you do decide to switch this over, you're going to want to make sure you're enabled on SFTP, and most clearinghouses will be pre-filled with the necessary information. So those are Trizetto, Waystar, Availity, things like that will all have those pre-filled in for you, so you don't have to do that. What you will need to do is make sure you have a valid username and password where you can enter it here, and then test your connection down here. So what does this do for you in terms of payer payments? Well, if we have automatic download files from routing files destination turned on, then we'll be able to receive payer responses, payer and clearinghouse responses. So clearinghouse responses, if they scrub your claims and then they reject them, you'll be able to receive that response back into your system, updating the claim response. Or a payer claim response, if they reject or accept the claim into the adjudication system, we'll be able to see that and follow the claim through the process. And then last but not, and certainly not least, why we're all here, electronic remittance advice, those payments and how they're paying for your patient's charges. One thing to point out is that Office Ally does require a manual upload because they do compress their files, and we do have an article for this that we will be supplying for how to upload these files so you can take advantage of ChiroTouch being able to utilize those electronic remittance advice. So I want to jump into the automatic allocation of payer payments. And the first thing is, how do you turn it on and off? So you may have turned this off, but in order to turn it back on, or if you want to manage this setting, you can manage it in your settings, billing settings, and automated settings. And it's this toggle right here that you could turn on and off. And when it's on, it'll automatically post the insurance payment to the patient's ledger without any action required from you. And then if it's off, it enables you to review and manually post the system's suggested allocations. And so we see an example of how these would appear in the system. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into ChiroTouch, and I'm going to show this off and how this looks. So first I'm going to get into a posted ERA. And I'm going to, I closed this one. So let's jump over here. And let's reopen this. So I have my posted ERA. The system posted it for me. And we can see that they processed as a primary the amount that they issued. And then we can see down here that it automatically posted and adjusted without me needing to interact with this. So this is, if I have this on with 0 exceptions, this is how it would come through in my system, and I can go through and audit how this applied. And then if I were to close this ERA, one thing that we recently implemented was that if there is a secondary on one of these patients that has a secondary responsibility now, because of the ERA, we're going to be prompted to create secondary claims. And so if I hit yes, it's going to actually create those drafts for me. So 4 secondary claims have been created successfully. So now I can reference those from my claims work list later on during my billing process. Now, if I have that setting turned off, it's going to look a little bit different. And so we're going to go over to an ERA where this setting is turned off. And we see that our bubbles are not filled in. And so if I were to drill down, I can see my charges just as before, but again, these are not posted. And so let's review how this looks and how to handle. And so this is the charge level, the data service and procedure codes, which then corresponding would be over here. This is considered what we call the tree view. And then over on the right-hand side is the information from the remittance. So this is an exact replica of what would be in your ERA report, not what the system has. So if I go up to a charge like this one, the ERA is saying that it's going to adjust $7 and assign 14 to the patient, 7 for other patient responsibility and 7 for deductible. So we have 7 and 7, and it's showing that the payer is going to pay $49. So if I wanted to post this, I can post it. And then if I scroll down and over, I can see that the payer paid for this. So we're able to apply the payment. We can also do this from a claim level. Let's say we are confident in this one and we say, okay, just post the whole claim. Well, it's going to do that. We see that it's allocating the amount that we have. And we can see that happening. And then last but not least, you can also do this from an ERA. So we post the ERA, and now I'm able to have a little bit more control over the flow if I were to turn this off. Same thing would happen if I close this ERA. It will prompt me to create a secondary claim. And so now those have created secondary claims for me to handle later. All right, so jumping back over to our presentation, let's go to some of the benefits of automatic allocation of payer payments. So it will, as we saw, it automatically allocates payer payments. It'll automatically adjust charges and assign responsibility. but there are some exceptions. And so the exceptions are probably what we really have questions on. And what are those exceptions? Well, first are warnings, which we'll get to in just a moment. But second are going to be secondary claims have quite a few nuances at the moment. And so we want to highlight those so you know what to expect. And so not every warning for secondaries will have an action. So you might receive a warning that you have to manually interact with in the system. Also, you will only be able to post the amount in secondary for the you will only be able to post the amount that is in secondary or patient responsibility. So the ERA will not post something that is sitting in primary or an adjustment. It won't move that money around to make it so that the secondary can post. We will reassign patient responsibility where applicable. So if the patient's responsible and the secondary is paying, we will reassign that so the secondary can pay according to the ERA. And then we do not perform write-offs or adjustments from a secondary, and we don't change the allowed amounts. This is because the sheer number of discrepancies that we have seen in the differences of how secondary payers will pay for or adjust their charges. And so we leave it up to the billers to decide on how to balance their charges. All right, so I'm going to jump into a few examples for these. Actually, it's one example that covers these exceptions. So I'm going to jump into our ERAs and EOBs. And I have one that is for a secondary. I actually, 10066. I see here that one posted and it paid $30 and adjusted $12. So if I go check out this charge, we didn't apply the additional adjustment. The $7 probably came from the primary, and we only paid $3 because the other responsibility was in a different payer. So for this one, we don't apply the adjustments to here. We also can only pay what's in secondary or in patient owed. For this scenario where there is a warning, we see that there's no action here. There's no blue button, and we can't perform this action. Now, for a primary, there used to not be an option here, and part of our sneak peek, we will discover that there is something coming for primary. But for secondary, it is all manual. So how do we do a manual allocation here, or how do we handle this? So we do have a payment balance that we can apply. We have some of the money here, and then we have additional funds as well. So we would just go in and hit allocate here. We'd go to our Clinton patient and go to our 1118 data service and manually allocate. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this, but just some things to point out in this screen. If you do have to jump over to a manual allocation, you can, first we need to get to our patient. You can type to search, which is actually not turned on in this practice. I do apologize. But we can either type or we can slide down to the patient, and then we can allocate accordingly. And let me see if I can find him. I actually can't because I have to turn on. Here it is. So here he is, and then I can adjust my allocations accordingly for this charge. So this said 30, we can add 30. All right.
And Justin, we have a question that came in. Someone asked when we are on the ERA screen, we are seeing match charge. What is the difference between matching a charge and posting?
Great question. I'll review matching a claim in the next slide,
Awesome.
But we will be reviewing all of those ERA warnings in just a moment. So that's actually a great transition. I'm going to jump into the next slide. And so we have a lot of information here regarding our claim ERA warnings. And so I'm going to touch on a few of these to help explain how to navigate them and what actions we recommend. So kind of similar to the question that Isabel just asked, the patient control number does not match to a claim in the system. What does this mean? So the claim response can't be matched to a claim. And this could be because the claim was sent from a legacy system. It could be because you sent a paper claim but are receiving an electronic response. So we have to use a claim ID to match that should be sent to the clearinghouse and received back. But also there could be an error from the payer or clearinghouse where they didn't send us that claim ID and we can't match it. And so we have you match it in the system. And there is an action for that. It's the match claim button. And I'm going to show that to you right now. So let me jump in over here, pull up my ERA that needs to be matched. We'll open this one up. And we see that I have an error that the patient control number doesn't match. I'm able to match, and I see back here who the patient is. I select the patient, I hit OK, and it says match charges. Matches have been found for all charges in the claim. Are you sure you want to match these charges to this claim? And so for this, I'm going to hit yes, because why wouldn't I want the system to do it for me? So it found matches. We see I don't have any claim error charge level matches or claim, and I can just easily post the claim, or I can review just as I showed before. So you can hit post claim and then close your ERA. But it looks like we got a couple warnings here. So there was already a payment received, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So I can close my ERA because that one was pretty straightforward, and we can jump into more warnings. So one or more charges are being fully written off in this claim. And this one is relatively new, but this is to put in front of our billers if a charge is being written off so that it doesn't automatically get written off unseen. So we're flagging these claims that there's one or more charges that are being written off. And our suggestion is to analyze the adjustment codes to ensure that they're valid and ones that you want to apply, and confirm if the claim should be rebilled or corrected to maximize your collection. So if you don't agree with that adjustment code, it might mean that you need to send a correction in order to fix an issue so that they don't apply that adjustment code. If the adjustments are valid and you just want to post it, for instance, you might have insurance that has a per diem amount, and you just know that this is going to be written off. We are going to be implementing as of tomorrow, so a sneak peek to tomorrow's release, where you can actually post the claim to proceed with applying those adjustments. So let me show you that one. And so if I jump in and I go to 101 and I hit apply, we see that I have a warning. One or more charges are being fully written off in this claim. So previously, we only saw this manually post option where we can apply certain things, but not all, or we can mark as denied. But something new and coming tomorrow is this post claim option. So if I already know I want to post this, I can just post it. If I know that this is flagging as a denial, then I can mark it as denied. Let's say the payer didn't send a denial response and they just sent full write-offs. We can just mark it as a denied. It'll flag the claim as such. We can also jump in and review these. So we see that these charges are the ones that are being written off. We have a billed amount of $450 and an adjustment of $450. So if we don't agree with this adjustment code, we might not want to just post this claim. We would want to go through this and decide. But for this, let's say it is a per diem, right? And we just want to hit post claim. We can post our claim. It does everything for us in one click, and we can move on from this ERA as well. So that's something exciting that's coming. We did get some feedback on that warning, and so we pushed out an enhancement for that. Up next is claim is denied. Pretty straightforward, but not all payers do send this on a remit. And so the payer is basically sending a message that says they're denying the claim that they're responding to. And so we suggest reviewing the adjustments and remark codes and correct the claim, correct the necessary information, and rebill or correct as per the processes you're going to follow. So for Medicare, obviously, you wouldn't send a corrected claim. Well, how would we handle this? And so let's jump into another example. And let's do this. All right, so we see claim is denied. And how I would suggest handling this is you can leave a note, right, saying charge is denied here. You could do it at a charge level. you could do notes at an invoice level. So you can quickly jump to an invoice if you wanted to and put a note here. This will follow the charges all along until for the full life cycle. Or you could do one better, and you can actually flag this to be corrected. So you can hit correct claim and save it. And then you can even leave a note on this corrected claim draft. So this is draft and sitting and ready to submit, ready for you to bill. But you can put a note on it and say needs, let's just say needs modifier for simplicity, right? And you can hit save. And now in your ready to submit work list, you just created a note for yourself for later that you could come back to. And so then you could actually, if you're done with this, if that's the process you want to follow, you can mark as posted. This is done because you've already created a corrected claim for you to follow up on. And then you can close the CRA as well. And that one's good to go. All right. So a few more of these claim level ERA warnings. Claim has an adjustment that is not associated to a line item. The payer has decided to make an adjustment on the entire claim, but hasn't sent details as far as which line item or if it even correlates to a line item. So it's just a general adjustment. And for this, we recommend to manually post the ERA using the allocate payment button. So as we saw in a bunch of these ERAs, let's just apply and we'll jump into an ERA. So as I showed before, use the allocate payment button and manually apply this, just like we did earlier with our secondary. All right. On to the claim is a reversal. So this one's a really exciting one for us, but we're not going to demo anything right this minute. But this is the payer has issued a reversal and it's retracting a previous payment or remittance advice or patient responsibility. And so there's going to be a reverse claim button, not yet, coming December, but we'll get into that sneak peek shortly. To be able to select the payment to reverse. And if no payment exists, we want to determine how to handle the reversal of the patient responsibility if that's what they're doing. We'll get into this in a couple more slides when we go over our sneak peek of what's coming soon. Last but not least on claim ERA warnings are we have an error while processing line items and to check the line items for more details. So this is essentially saying to expand your claim and check into the line item specifics. I want to pause here and see, do we have any questions pertaining to the claim ERA warnings?
So on your demo, you demonstrate that you click on mark as posted. Do you have to always hit mark as posted on the manual payment workflow that you just demoed?
Only when the warning does not have an action that would help you mark it as posted. For instance, a post line item button would help you do that, right? So for instance, when we reviewed one or more charges, we were able to just hit post claim for that warning to get through it. So it's essentially we acknowledged it. For something like a denied, you do need to you need to mark it as posted if you want to clear that warning so it doesn't appear on your work list anymore. Because there is no action, you're basically saying, I'm marking it as posted, I'm acknowledging this, and that will clear your warning off the page for you.
Okay, awesome. The other question that is related as well to your demo is related to the matching. You show that you have an error appearing. Will the billers that process the ERAs will see that error appearing when there's a match charge or match claim? Explaining the why? Okay.
Yeah, so it won't say why. All the time, the why for a claim is going to be that the claim ID doesn't match for some reason or another. And it could be one of these reasons, that it was sent from a legacy system, was sent paper. And if it's not one of these two, it's probably the last one. And that's where we want to start digging into and maybe working with our support team to try to figure out why that couldn't match. But I would check the first two to start, and then the third would be there could be something wrong from the payer or the clearinghouse where we need to clean up that they send that to us. All right.
And Justin, I got a couple more.
Okay.
So at times I've gotten unlinked ERAs, and they want to know, why does this happen? How can I prevent it? And how do I handle them?
Awesome. Great question here. Let me see if I have an unlinked ERA. And if I don't, I can walk through how to do it. So for an unlinked ERA, this one was voided, so this one can't be linked. Let's see, let's check this one. This one was also voided. So for unlinked ERAs, I'm going to use this screen. We can link those ERAs right here. And what it's going to do is it's going to pop out this slide out. This is just on the voided, but we can assign the payer right here, and then we can post it. And then what it's going to do is it's going to reprocess that. The reason you're going to get an unlinked ERA is because we couldn't find any matching claim. So we couldn't refer it back to a single payer or claim in the system. And so this usually happens when customers first start with us because of this first reason. Claims were sent from a legacy system. So we couldn't find a single claim in the system that was sent out. Or it could happen if they're only sending paper claims and receiving electronic responses. But it's most likely the first scenario that we'll see for those unlinked claim responses. And they could be done right from the work list. Our previous workflow used to be you have to check on claims and unlinked claim responses, but you'll be able to see those right in here. Just like we saw with that voided one, a normal one will have the dash and this link ERA option right here where you can perform everything right from the ERA because it's dashed like this one. All right. Any other questions?
And the next one is, can you explain the flow of billed, allowed, etc. amounts to balance for a patient? This is related to the secondary claim does not match or does not change the allowed amount, but I have seen that it is on my own end. It changes from the allowed amount for the primary to the secondary allowed amount.
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
It sounds like it changes from the allowed amount for the primary to the secondary.
Mm-hmm. We might have done that previously, but now we only use the allowed amount from the primary. We never move it for the secondary. And that is due to any discrepancies that might have happened in the past. But as far as balancing the charges, if I were I'm just going to go into any allocate for a patient. In order to be able to balance a charge, your billed amount minus your adjustment will equal your allowed. And we'll do that calculation in this screen for you. So if I adjust $20, I just type it in, it changes my allowed amount. Now I need to adjust my responsibilities. And so my total payer plus my patient needs to be equal my allowed. So right now it's 70. So let's say I need to adjust some stuff. I move this to 30 and this to 20. Oh, I just accidentally clicked out of it. But 30 plus 20 would have been the 50 to balance. So your total, we are back here. So 30, 20, and then 50, which then it automatically adjusts my amount. So it's billed minus allowed equals adjustment, or billed minus adjustment equals allowed. And then your total owed in this area has to equal your allowed. So you sum all of this up to equal this. All right. Moving on to charge ERA warnings. So this seems like it was one of the questions we were asking, and is matching charge cannot be found in the system. The system could not find a matching charge for the date of service and procedure code. This will typically happen when the payer sends charge information that differs from the system. Typically modifiers is the culprit here. And the advice here is use the match charge button. So let's go take a look at this flow for using the match charge button. We'll go over to our ERA that has a match charge issue. And so we see there's an error while processing line items. We jump in here, and if we go, if we look, we have a modifier here. Let's try to match the charge because it's unmatched. So we see here that we sent an AT. It's actually a 5.9 that the payer is sending back. And so that's the discrepancy. So then we'll hit match. It will match for us, and then we would just post the line item. And now it should post that amount. But we already received a payment for this. So that's why it errored out when it tried to post. But if it didn't, it would have posted and updated the responsibility and such. But we did already have a payment in here. In this case, I could mark it as posted, but we will get to this error in just a moment where I can review what this looks like.
Justin, I have a question, and that's related to this screen. So is that okay if I interrupt you?
Yeah.
The question was, when an ERA is received, sometimes I get a specific code in code, but when I go to secondary, it's filled with COOO. How do we work with it?
Awesome. Great question. So if there's a C0, COOO, it means that adjustment code is not in your system. So let's say this C048 is not in our system. What would happen here is it's going to give you a COOO. And what you would want to do is add it into your settings. So I do have to leave the ERA in order to do this. And so if I go to my billing codes and I go to, it could either be your payment types, right? Because it could be a PR code, right? So if it's a PR code, you might want to add it here. Or if it's an adjustment code like we're referring to, we're going to go to our write-offs and adjustments. So I'm going to do my CO, I forget the number because I was talking a lot, but if it was a 6.8, I can say adjustment for missing. I'm going to say for missing modifier again. That's not what it is. But I can say that and I can save it, and then I would be able to apply it. And then anytime I received an ERA for that code going forward, it would automatically apply it going forward, and I won't have to worry about it. So the reason you're going to see that from time to time is because that code is not in your system and it needs to be added. So the next warning I want to cover is line item is out of balance. So when attempting to post the remit, it would cause a system charge to go out of balance, which is what we were referring to previously with the billed amount, allowed amount, and patient owed needing to total up. And so we would use the manually post line item button in this scenario. Now we're looking at how do we make this manual post line item option available in other areas to make it easier to post. So just know that we are looking into this to make it easier in these scenarios to be able to work from in your ERA from one screen. So what do I mean by that? For instance, this line item is out of balance, right? So if I go to manually post the line item because it was out of balance, if I look at this, and I was able to look at this beforehand, I know this is off by 1 penny. So in one place, I need to put 1 penny in order to balance this out. And this is because the math from the payer didn't balance out for us. Now, I will also show you something that Isabel was referring to, and the PR00 right here. So this populated PR00, but I really needed PR177 in this case. And so if I go into my settings and put in PR177, I'll be able to add that here so that I don't have issues when I'm billing my secondary, either through the clearinghouse or any kind of scrubbing that happens. And so I would be able to do that. So just highlighting that PR00C000 there. But I need to add a penny to this. So I'm going to add it to my secondary here. So this is just a decision that you have to make. You could put it up here if you thought it needed to go here. But we're seeing that we're getting paid $48.99. So we're not going to do that. We want to close out our primary. And so we're going to apply this here, and we're going to leave the rest alone. It balances out because we're not getting any errors right over here. We'd see all of them right here. And then we can hit save. And then it posted it for us. And now we're able to just go and close this ERA because we posted it. We do have a 1 penny here, which I'll get into how to use this remit offset shortly. But for some reason, it was off by a penny. So maybe we did need to add it into that other one. And then again, the create secondary claims option is there. All right. Line item has negative patient adjustments. The system just doesn't post these. They put them in front of the biller. And so you'd use that same manually post line item button, and you can make negative adjustments in that adjustment column. You just have to make sure you balance the charge appropriately, as we discussed, that the billed amount minus the allowed equals the adjustment, and all of the owed amounts must equal the allowed amount. So I'm not going to jump into that one in particular because we just did a manually post line item, but you would use that one. And again, in other areas, we're looking to get that option so you can make those changes on one screen if you need to. Insufficient remaining payment balance to fully allocate charge. So the payment balance is insufficient to allocate to the full charge amount that needs to be allocated. And usually this happens because a reversal happened earlier in the remit. And so they're not actually paying on that claim, or it came from a different remit. So there was an adjustment to a previous remit and they're passing it over to this one, and they're not paying you the full amount, but they're paying for that particular charge. And so you're going to use what we're implementing is a post line item button if the remit still does not have enough of a balance, and you'll be prompted to create what's called a remit offset. And this is something I'll show off in our sneak peek coming soon to be able to do that. All right. Possible split line item detected. And this one is the payer has split a multi-unit charge into multiple charges on the ERA, requiring manual intervention. So what you're going to do is use the merge button, and you'll be able to merge two charges together to be able to fully post that charge. Moving along through some of these, line item primary payment already received. This one we saw already. And this, you need to decide whether to post the additional amount manually, to leave it unallocated, or contact the payer for clarification. You may also add a remit offset, which again we'll review, for overpayment if the payer is going to reverse the payment. So if you already know that's going to happen, you can create it ahead of time. So that's up to you to handle if they've already paid and they shouldn't have. Also, I might check to see if there was a reversal that I didn't apply, and then they were paying again, because if we apply the reversal, this message wouldn't appear. Matching charges manually removed from the ERA. This just means somebody from the ERA screen, and I'm going to try to find an example on this one. I don't necessarily have one queued up, but if I'm on well, that's an EOB, so that's not going to work. If I'm on an ERA and I remove one of these charges, it's going to give me that error. The line item is being fully written off. We kind of covered this one earlier, where we are putting this in front of the biller to be able to make their own decision. So we covered this when we flag it for a claim. And so this, we would advise to use the post line item option. And then unable to post because the charges had no secondary or patient responsibility. The system charge does not have secondary or patient responsibility to post the ERA response to. So this means it wasn't moved. And so let's jump into that really quickly. All right. So for this one, we're going to expand into our charges, and we're unable to post because the charge has no secondary or patient responsibility. And so we would just use this allocate payment button right up here again and jump into the manual process. Now, again, as I mentioned, we're going to try to put more of those manual post options throughout. And so as Sean mentioned, he works with the billing side. His team is going to be working on that for us. So exciting stuff on the horizon.
When a claim is or ERAs or EOB marked as denied, does the ChiroTouch Cloud automatically do a write-off?
No, when it's marked as denied, we do not. We warn for them. And if they don't send it as a denied response, and they're just writing it off, we flag it. So we don't automatically write off any charges anymore. We had implemented that a few months back. All right, so that brings us to the end of our ERA warnings. So we're giving you a sneak peek of some really exciting features here today. These are coming in December 2024. Our teams have been hard at work preparing these. We understand that some of these flows have been challenging for you as a practice. And so you've spoken and we've listened, and we're pushing out these enhancements as soon as we possibly can in December. So first up, we're calling remit offsets. And you might have heard me refer to this a couple times. And this is supposed to change the flow of how you handle your payments in the system. And so you're going to be given an option to add more money or remove money from a remit or an EOB in order to balance it out appropriately. So that includes overpayments, incentives, fees, things like that, to be able to balance them out. So I'm going to show that off really quick for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into one of these ERAs, and we're going to say that we need to apply an offset. And so when I open this up, if I have a fee, let's say they're paying me for all of my charges, but then they're going to take away some money due to a fee, you can actually give the ERA more money, because otherwise they would have subtracted from your payment amount, right? So it adds more money to your remit. So you're able to go in and allocate $190, $151. This also helps if they give us a zero pay. We can do something like this. So if I create a remit for $0, but it's referring to something that was reversed in the past, I get this option in my manual allocation flow. Let's say something was reversed in the past. Oh, interesting. That's not working. We will look into that before we push this out. But let's say there was a reversal of a previous payment and I need $30 for this remit. I can update, and now I can go allocate my payment, and I can apply that $30 to this charge, and I can save it, and it applies for me. We can go over here and see that it applied for me. All right. So we can do that. We will be able to do it from this allocate payments page. As you can see, I can click right here. This also works with incentives. So if you have a general incentive, and so the payment amount is too much, you can take away as well. And how do you take away? You could put in a negative here. You could put in -$5. The problem is I can't take away because I've used it all. It will warn me and say, you can't take away. So you would have to, in that case, you wouldn't have been able to allocate all this, because that's not how the ERA or EOB would have balanced. So really exciting to be able to use remit offsets, to be able to adjust your payment amounts to adjust your payment balances without adjusting the payment amount or the actual amount that you've received into the practice. So it helps with being able to report on those better. Jumping into our next topic, we want to talk about reversals. Pretty hot topic that we've heard about. And so we wanted to implement some features for you. And so reversals are going to allow you to apply reversals for previous payer payments. Applying a reversal will remove the allocation from the associated charge. It will apply a remit offset to ensure the previous payment no longer reflects a balance. And then if additional funds are required due to the reversal, you'll be prompted to apply those funds and code appropriately. So I'm going to jump into an ERA with this scenario. Now, we understand that there are multiple scenarios that can occur when working with ERAs, and sometimes you don't have enough money, and sometimes they're going to take the money off of the next remit. So what we're going to do is, we see here we have a reversal. We click on the claim. It says claim is a reversal. We have this new shiny reverse button that will be coming in December. We hit reverse. This one says it doesn't have a previous reversal. So if it had an allocation, we would be able to reverse this payment. And I'll show you how that works in just a moment on a manual flow. But for this one, it says that we don't have enough money, right? And so what we can do is we can post the line item. And this says, due to insufficient funds, a remit offset is needed. Do you want to create a remit offset? And so I can hit yes. And why do I want that remit offset? I want it because of a reversal of a payment. That's why I need extra money. And so I can do that, and it will post that amount right to the charge because I needed the extra money. All right. So that's reversals. We would be able to get a screen for this to reverse. If we don't have a previous payment and we just need to mark it as posted, we can do that as well. But ideally, we would be looking at from the lens of you do have a previous payment. And I'll show you in the manual payment flow how that works. 0036. This one's going to be an EOB. And so if I go into allocate payment here, I'm going to see that I can perform this reversal right from here as well. So we have the same icon. And it says, do you want to perform reversal of this allocation? So I'm reversing this payment. And I hit yes. We're still going to see the payment, but the allocation goes away. We have a reverse icon, which indicates that this has been reversed. If we hover over it, it will say reversed. And we can also reference back to this payment and this ERA report still if we need to. So we can get in here, we can look at the ERA report, reference what happened. And also it would have applied a remit offset here for a reversal of $49.97 to offset the balance on this. So you're not going to have a balance that's outstanding here on this payment. So then this would associate to our EOB if we click associate. So we want to make sure we associate because we removed that. And then if I save and close this, we see that that was added right there. All right, so that's reversals. We have a very significant change as far as $0 payment and allocation improvements. And so I'm going to jump right into those. We're going to save all the questions for the end. And so the benefit of $0 payment and manual allocation improvements is a more streamlined workflow from a single page. So the allocate payment option allows you to associate charges seamlessly, adjust patient or payer responsibilities, edit additional details as necessary, and these changes can be made even when no balance remains. So let's jump into this really quickly. And again, this is a sneak peek for what's to come. And so if I jump into, we're going to use the same ERA or EOB, sorry. And we created the balance here. So let's actually just clear the slate. So let's say we have a $0 EOB from Aetna, and we received it on check, and this is our off, and we post it. Now we posted it, we X'd out of here. Now you're going to notice that you have an allocate payment button, even though there's a $0 balance. So no matter what, if there's a $0 balance, you'll be able to hit allocate. We're going to notice the associate button is gone, as well as the edit charges. So that's a big highlight here, is that associate and edit are gone. So let's say I need to allocate this EOB, and I'm working through it. And I'm going to quickly apply payments and not make it too many adjustments. Oh, sorry. I'm not allocating a payment. I'm actually adjusting. So let's say I need to write this whole thing off, right? So I zero that out, I zero that out, and I zero that out. One thing to, I make that 50. Sorry. One thing we'll notice is when I edit a line, this box is now checked. It previously had all of these boxes checked, but this is now called associate. And so anything that is checked will associate. So if you don't need to make an adjustment on this charge, you can just check the box and associate it. Let's say coupled with your fee schedules and your auto calculation of patient responsibility, you actually don't need to adjust anything here. Let's say it was fully deductible. Well, you could just select it and it will associate it to the EOB and be able to handle it from there. As I mentioned earlier, you can use additional charges to find things that have a zero balance. So if I go in here and I scroll down, for this patient, I don't have any. Actually, I have one that has a zero balance. Nope, actually I don't. But I would be able to see if they have a zero balance here. Also, a new addition, we did add this apply button to help with page load times a little bit. but we will be looking into how to streamline this flow a little bit more. So that will be $0 payments. And one last and final enhancement that I can show you on this page, and I'll also jump over to one more example, is we'll notice that that add secondary button is gone here. And what we're doing is we're going to start to pull from the invoice if there's a secondary. Instead of having to hit add secondary and check, we'll tell you if there's a secondary on the invoice. Or if it's not on the invoice, if it's in the patient account, we'll put it here. Now, if we select the wrong one, if there's another one, we will be able to drop this down and change it. This will also appear for secondary to tertiary. So if we jump into this last and final EOB, thank you everybody for bearing with me. We jump into this last and final EOB and we hit allocate. We're going to see that we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem, which we can allocate to because it's the secondary. And then we also see the additional secondary to Anthem as Cigna. So I could push anything I need to from Anthem to Cigna as per the Remit advice. All right. So basically what I just did was reviewed this column here for secondary and other insurance billing, basically giving us an easier way to understand if your patient has a secondary on their account. You'll be able to allocate and visualize the patient has another insurance, shift responsibility to the next payer, and it selects the secondary on the invoice first and then references the patient account should one not be present. All right. So that concludes what I've had prepared, and sorry for speeding through the last portion, but I did want to open it up in the last few minutes for any questions we might have.
The first question that I have is related to the auto allocation of payers. So all the topic, how does it work if the insurance overpay? I believe you answered that, but if you can just summarize it, Justin.
Yeah, so if the insurance overpays, so there's a couple scenarios where the insurance could overpay. If they pay twice, then we'll warn. But if the primary pays and then the secondary overpays and it goes above the billed amount, the suggestion there would be to make a negative adjustment. And so basically what you would do is, let's say here you have -20 for the normal adjustment and you need this to go above the billed amount for any reason, you can put in an adjustment code for overpayment. I'm just going to, for time sake, I'm going to put in this and we can put in a negative adjustment. Let's say it's $40 that I need extra. And so you could put in a negative adjustment where then you can apply that to the responsibility and apply the payment.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. So we see here allowed is over billed amount. I didn't highlight that.
Thank you so much. I know we are over time, so I have 3 quick questions. The first question is, can we relink avoid the ERA?
We cannot relink a voided ERA. If you accidentally void an ERA, you can reach out to support and they can help you reprocess that. There is a way to do it. Unfortunately, there's no way to pull back that voided ERA on your own, though.
Awesome. I have another attendee that asked a question related to the fees or when the payer pays interests. When a payer pays interest, we currently have to go back to the invoice to add a charge, assign it to the charge for insurance, then go back and allocate the interest payments. Is there a simpler way to allocate the interest?
Absolutely. So that's where your remit offset is going to come in. You can add codes for this. So in your settings, and again, this is a sneak peek coming soon, so won't help you right now, but coming as soon as next month, you can add in billing codes, remit offsets, and you can say, I want to code it as interest, and I can say it's an interest offset. And then I can apply that to my remits, and I no longer need to go and add this fake charge, right? So I would be able to go in here. So this is a prime example, right? Let's say this was a zero pay for whatever reason, just using as an example. This is interest. I can get rid of this balance right here. It would be negative, right? Because we want to take it away from the payment balance. And now I don't have to worry about an unallocated amount. It's fully allocated now. So that's going to be the benefit of remit offsets.
Awesome. And my last question is, we have an attendee that asked related to the practice ledger versus the patient ledger. So how those changes that you do on the ERAs and claims will affect the patient ledger?
So it will, on your patient ledgers, you shouldn't see unallocated payer payment amounts unless they were made on the patient ledger, right? If I add an EOB here, then the unallocated amounts do impact this. But if they're made from the practice ledger, that is where you will see the impact, and it will reduce the balance amount or add the balance amount depending on which remit offset you have. So when you're looking, if you're using a positive or negative remit offset, it will adjust that available amount. So it will change how this looks. So if you have numerous, let's say the example of interest charges that you need to handle, you would be able to reduce this available amount by applying those remit offsets to those ERAs. Same thing for the patient ledger if you had one that was added to that ledger.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I do not believe we have other questions. If we didn't answer the question, obviously, we are going to reach out offline, but the floor is yours, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you. And just really quick, we did miss something on reversals that's key. I had said that you should be able to reference the payment. So if I hit the reverse option, it will give you the auth and EFT that you can select, the payment information, and the amount. It also lists how much the reversal is for. So for this one, it's 209, and it will sum up the total of the reversal. So if it's multiple, it'd be that. But you can't do a partial. It has to be the full allocation amount. So then if I only needed to reverse 100 or go and do the rest, I can actually save this and process the reversal. And now we are able to mark it as posted and say that that reversal is complete. So I did want to show that really quick before we ended.
Just a reminder, community has all our knowledge guides and other articles, courses, and videos, recordings of our other webinars. You can chat with community, open a support ticket, or give us a call if you need help. Also, as we release updates, especially to this billing flow, we do work these flows into the billing 101 and 102 webinars. Those are usually kind of reserved for onboarding people, think of them as, but they are open to any office on cloud. So feel free to pop into those every so often if you just want to make sure you have the most up-to-date info. The recordings for those are in community as well. And then just a quick plug, we do have our customer success office hours. I know it's only 30 minutes. It's not actually an hour, but it's usually every other Wednesday. So if you go into your resource center, when you're in the software, in the Get Help section, there is a link to register for those customer success office hour sessions. So everyone, thanks for hanging with us, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.